As the crypto market continues to evolve, smart contract cryptos are starting to claim certain niches. It appears that Avalanche, with its subnet architecture, is starting to claim the gaming niche. Now, this is significant considering that crypto gaming could be one of the biggest narratives of the next bull market. So, what could this mean for AVAX? Well, in today's Avalanche update, we give you all the answers, including what the project has been up to and where it's headed next. So, stay tuned. I'll start by saying that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's purely educational content that's meant to inform you about Avalanche. I'll also note that a few members of the Coin Bureau team hold AVAX as part of their personal crypto portfolios, but we will keep our analysis as objective as possible. If you're wondering what other cryptos we hold, you can become a member of the Coin Bureau Club, where we review promising small-cap altcoins that our members vote for, discuss them in exclusive Discord channels, and give you real-time analysis of the market. The link to that will be down in the description. Anyways, with all that said, it's been more than a year and a half since we last covered Avalanche, so I reckon a quick refresher is in order. So, as noted in the introduction, Avalanche is a smart contract cryptocurrency. It was founded in 2018 by computer scientist and former Cornell University professor Emin Gün Sirer. Avalanche was built by Ava Labs, a company based in the United States, and its ongoing development is overseen by the Avalanche Foundation, a non-profit organization that's based in Singapore. Avalanche raised $60 million across various ICOs in 2019 and 2020, and an additional $580 million from VCs in 2021 and 2022. However, it is important to note that the Avalanche Foundation lost up to $200 million when Terra collapsed in May 2022. That's because Terra had traded $100 million of UST and $100 million of Luna for $200 million of AVAX with the Foundation. We'll come back to all of that later. Now, Avalanche's mainnet went live in 2020, and though the project is technically still in development, it is, to all intents and purposes, fully functional. In contrast to most cryptocurrencies, Avalanche is not a single blockchain. It's a network of 3 separate but related blockchains. The contract chain, or C-chain, is a standard proof-of-stake blockchain that leverages a modified version of the Ethereum Virtual Machine, or EVM, for smart contracts. It uses a novel consensus mechanism called Snowman, and its purpose is to host all the decentralized applications on Avalanche. Then there's the platform chain, or P-chain, which is another standard proof-of-stake blockchain that this time leverages the Platform Virtual Machine. Its purpose is to coordinate all activities related to Avalanche's validators, including the creation of custom blockchains called subnets, which can leverage Avalanche's validators for security. And finally, the exchange chain, or X-chain, is a novel DAG blockchain that leverages the Avalanche Virtual Machine. Its purpose is to allow for the creation of Avalanche native tokens, or ANTs. For context, Avalanche's mission is to tokenize all real-world assets, hence the importance of the X-chain and of ANTs. Now, if you watched our previous Avalanche review, you'll know that each of these chains has a different transaction speed. Back then, the C-chain and P-chain could process up to 1500 TPS, whereas the X-chain could process up to 4500 TPS. Today, it's no longer noted how fast the C and P chains are. It's also not clear how many transactions per second subnets can process, but Avalanche's documentation implies that it could be more than 4500. On that note, Avalanche's 3 core blockchains are secured by the same set of almost 1800 validators. The Avalanche Explorer notes that there are over 100 subnets, but it seems that only around 30 are active. The average subnet is secured by around 8 validators, with the most popular subnet being Beam. Avalanche's validators must stake a minimum of 2,000 AVAX, which works out to a whopping $80,000 at the time of shooting. Thankfully, though, delegation is possible with just 25 AVAX. Any staked AVAX is locked for 2 weeks. Staking rewards are currently around 7.5% and there's no slashing risk. Besides staking, AVAX is used to pay for transaction fees on Avalanche's 3 blockchains. All transaction fees are burned, and over 4.1 million AVAX have been burned so far. For reference, AVAX has a maximum supply of 720 million, half of which was allocated to staking rewards that will last until 2029. The allocation for the other half of AVAX's supply can be seen here. Feel free to pause in order to look. For those listening, roughly 27% went to the team and foundation, and the remaining 23% was either sold to investors, airdropped, or distributed to insiders, such as advisors. And the vesting schedule for this AVAX can be seen here. Again, feel free to pause in order to have a look. For those listening, there are multiple vesting cliffs for all parties that last until later this year. It's important to note, though, that this information came from CoinGecko, as Avalanche seems to have deleted the original info. It's also important to note that AVAX is not required to pay for transaction fees on Avalanche's subnets. Keep that in mind, as it will be relevant later on. And if you're enjoying the video so far, smash that like button to give it a boost, and consider subscribing to the channel and pinging that notification bell so you don't miss our next altcoin update. Anyways, given that it's been more than a year and a half since we last covered Avalanche, there's no way that we can fit all the updates into a single video. This means we'll have to skip a few for the sake of time. So if there are any important ones that you believe we've missed, do drop a comment to let us all know. Okay. Shortly after our last video went live in June 2022, Avalanche launched its highly anticipated Bitcoin bridge. According to June Analytics, over 10,000 BTC were bridged from Bitcoin to Avalanche at its peak. There's still around 3.1k BTC bridged, which works out to almost $150 million worth. In July 2022, Avalanche's popular Pangolin DEX announced it would be expanding to Flare, the XRP-affiliated EVM-compatible Layer 1. A few months later, the popular Trader Joe DEX expanded to the Ethereum ecosystem, deploying to both Ethereum and its Arbitrum Layer 2. Then, in August 2022, AVAX crashed after a report alleged that Avalanche had been paying law firms to direct regulators to Avalanche's competitors. The allegations included videos of an interview with a lawyer seeming to admit this. Many of Avalanche's competitors have since been targeted by the SEC. Anyhow, in September 2022, Ethereum Layer 2 Boba Network launched the first Layer 2 on Avalanche. Asset manager KKR also tokenized a healthcare fund on the Avalanche blockchain. As most of you will know, institutional investors are obsessed with tokenization and seem to be interested in Avalanche as a result. Then, in October 2022, the OpenSea NFT marketplace launched on Avalanche. Avalanche also partnered with a Japanese media giant called Gree to build Web3 games on its blockchain. I'll quickly note that Avalanche has recently been expanding aggressively in Asia, which foreshadows more announcements like this. Speaking of which, in December 2022, Avalanche partnered with Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba to make it easy to launch validators on Avalanche. Avalanche also launched the Warp messaging protocol, making subnets interoperable. This foreshadows new use cases and partnerships within Avalanche. Then, in January 2023, the bullish news continued with Avalanche partnering with e-commerce giant Shopify, making it possible for merchants to mint NFTs on Avalanche. Avalanche also partnered with Amazon's AWS to provide blockchain solutions for institutions, including governments. In February 2023, an order book-based DEX called Dexalot launched a subnet on Avalanche, while a gaming studio called DOS Labs also launched a subnet. Better yet, Avalanche partnered with the cloud arm of Chinese tech giant Tencent to help institutions adopt blockchain. And as a cherry on top, Avalanche announced the launch of the Hyper SDK, which makes it possible for developers to build scalable blockchains with brand new virtual machines. These blockchains will be called hyperchains, and they sound eerily similar to subnets, just more customizable. In March 2023, a digital securities platform from Luxembourg announced that it would be, you guessed it, tokenizing assets on Avalanche. Unfortunately, though, this good news was overshadowed by the outages on Avalanche's X and C chains, reportedly caused by a bug in the updated code. Fortunately, this bad news was overshadowed by a big headline in April 2023, and that's that the Merit Circle DAO would be launching a gaming-focused Avalanche subnet called Beam. Newsflash, Beam has been one of the top-performing cryptos as of late, hitting a market cap of over $1 billion. Gaming studio Gunzilla also announced that it had launched a subnet on Avalanche for its upcoming game called Off the Grid. AVAX also introduced evergreen subnets, which are basically subnet templates that make it easy for institutions to build subnets for institutional use cases. But wait, there's more. In May 2023, Alibaba's cloud division unveiled a metaverse launchpad on Avalanche, Circle launched its Euro stablecoin on Avalanche, and Ava Labs launched Ava Cloud, a tool that lets you build blockchains without having to write a single line of code. There was just one problem: the Avalanche bridge. According to a May 2023 report, over $300 million of illicit crypto had been bridged to Avalanche using said bridge. Following the report, Avalanche implemented a screening process to ensure that no more illicit crypto is bridged over and increased the time it took to bridge back. Yikes. To add insult to injury, a July 2023 report found that the Avalanche Twitter account had the second largest percentage of fake followers of all crypto project accounts. For what it's worth, only around 8% of Avalanche's Twitter following was determined to be fake, with the first place holder having just 10%. But the bearish Avalanche news continued into the autumn, when an Avalanche clone of the popular friend tech app called Stars Arena was exploited for $3 million of AVAX shortly after its launch in October 2023. To their credit, Stars Arena managed to refund 90% of the funds that were lost. But the autumn of discontent wasn't over. In November 2023, Ava Labs announced that it would be laying off 12% of its staff. And shortly afterwards, an ecosystem accelerator revealed that it had invested $10 million into Avalanche's ecosystem, giving the impression that said ecosystem was in fact low on cash. This doesn't seem to have been the case, however, because in December 2023, Avalanche announced the launch of a $100 million Culture Catalyst Fund, which it would use to buy meme coins on Avalanche. Avalanche also recently revealed the criteria for which meme coins it would buy. Link is in the description if you're interested. Anywho, in January of this year, interest in Avalanche spiked due to the launch of Avalanche inscriptions. Now, if you watched our video about Bitcoin inscriptions, you'll know they involve attaching data to small fractions of a crypto coin. The Chinese crypto community reportedly went wild for Avalanche inscriptions. As with Bitcoin, the hype around Avalanche ordinals seemed to have put a strain on its blockchain because Ava Labs subsequently announced that it would be launching a scaling solution called AVAX, which can process up to 100,000 transactions per second. Naturally, it uses the Hyper SDK. And finally, earlier this month, Shrapnel, a highly anticipated blockchain game on Avalanche, launched for select users on the Epic Games Store. Shrapnel is expected to fully launch in 2025, which is good timing given that this is likely when the bull market mania will hit its peak. Note that Shrapnel has its own subnet. Now, the consequence of all of Avalanche's updates, developments, and partnerships can be clearly seen in AVAX's price action. As you can see, AVAX had a strong start to 2023, but then collapsed in the second half of the year, likely due to all the bearish news about Avalanche and the focus being mainly on Bitcoin and those ETFs. AVAX's supply, growing by over 90 million since June 2022, also probably didn't help its price. Assuming an average price of $20 per AVAX, it could have seen as much as $1.8 billion of sell pressure. Now, this sounds like a lot, but it only works out to around $100 million per month, and it assumes all of this AVAX was sold, which, well, it probably wasn't. However, That's just the supply side of the question. According to AVAScan, the number of daily transactions on Avalanche fell off a cliff in April 2023. It's not entirely clear why this happened, but we suspect that it's because the activity on Avalanche moved from its core network to its subnets. You'll recall that AVAX isn't required to pay for transaction fees on subnets. Logically then, this means all the activity on these subnets doesn't translate to any actual demand for AVAX. The caveat is that subnets must spin up their own validators, which requires buying 2,000 AVAX. But you'll recall most subnets only have around 8 validators. Regardless, the sharp decline in AVAX transactions, combined with those bearish headlines, seems to have been what caused AVAX's price to collapse in the second half of the year. To put things into perspective, AVAX hit a low of $8 during the autumn when those bearish headlines were coming thick and fast. And this was even lower than the $10 AVAX had hit after FTX collapsed in November 2022. So, those of you who bought around that time essentially managed to buy the bottom. Kudos if you did. Since that time, AVAX has rallied by almost 6x and appears to be painting a massive bull flag on the weekly chart. Depending on how you draw your lines, AVAX could rally as high as $70 in the coming weeks. And it's possible it could go even higher if the macro conditions are favourable. There's just one thing to remember, however, and that's that Terra's Lunar Foundation Guard is apparently still holding just under $80 million worth of AVAX. Some of you might have heard that Terra recently filed for bankruptcy in the United States. This means it's possible that this AVAX will soon be liquidated. The catch, though, is that the demand side of the equation is looking much better, and the recent headlines have been very bullish. This should make it easy for AVAX to absorb this and any other sell pressure coming from Terra and indeed any other entities that went bankrupt during the bear market. Not only that, but it's easy to forget that Avalanche's mission is to tokenize all real-world assets. If you watched our video about the biggest narratives of the next crypto bull market, you'll know that tokenized real-world assets could be one of them. This could in turn be extremely bullish for AVAX. Throw in Avalanche's GameFi focus and you have the recipe for a truly massive rally once the crypto market reaches peak FOMO. While it's hard to say just how high AVAX could go, if it follows the other large-cap altcoins like Sol, it could pull a 5 to 7x from its current levels, if not more in the long term. If you're planning on trading AVAX, by the way, then you need to check out the Coin Bureau deals page. It's got trading fee discounts of up to 60% and sign-up bonuses of up to $50,000 on the best crypto exchanges. These deals are available for a limited time only, so take advantage of them while you can. The link will be in the description. Now, whether AVAX will achieve its long-term potential ultimately depends on Avalanche's upcoming milestones. Although there's no official roadmap for Avalanche, Avalab's co-founder Kevin Seknicki posted a de facto roadmap on Twitter in December 2023 in response to Vitalik Buterin's updated Ethereum roadmap. Kevin's, quote, wish list included 8 milestones. The first is improvements to Avalanche's consensus, specifically to reduce its finality time from 1 to 2 seconds to 250 milliseconds. Now, perhaps we're mistaken, but we're pretty sure this would technically make Avalanche the fastest crypto on the market. More about how crypto speed is calculated using the link in the description. I digress. Now, the second milestone is to increase the capacity of the Avalanche consensus by increasing hardware requirements. To our understanding, this would have the practical effect of further increasing Avalanche's TPS, but the trade-off is that the higher hardware requirements could result in centralization. The third milestone is, quote, deep code refactoring, which involves improving Avalanche's modified version of the EVM. The goal of this would be to make upgrades to this EVM safer and faster. We suspect this could be a tacit response to the outage that Avalanche reportedly experienced in March 2023. The fourth milestone involves various database upgrades. These would make Avalanche's version of the EVM much faster. As a fun fact, by the way, the EVM is inherently limited to a few hundred transactions per second. One of Avalanche's biggest innovations was modifying the EVM to increase this TPS into the thousands. Anywho, the fifth milestone involves various subnet updates. These would involve making it possible to stake AVAX on the C chain, which would be a welcome development given that this currently requires hopping chains to do. Unless you're using a liquid staking protocol, but, well, let's not get too technical. Now, the sixth milestone is improving Avalanche's aforementioned messaging protocol. The goal in this case would be to reduce the communication time between subnets to 1 second. This would make Avalanche's messaging protocol the fastest in crypto, at least until someone else makes a faster one. The seventh milestone is improving the Hyper SDK, while the eighth is to encourage the creation of more virtual machines using the Hyper SDK. With a bit of luck, these two milestones could result in the creation of a new virtual machine that challenges the dominance of the EVM in crypto. Avalanche founder Emin also mentioned another big milestone in an interview last June. This is the introduction of so-called coin-operated agents, which can be simply understood as validators with AI functionality. We'll leave a link to Emin's presentation about this in the description if you're interested. And that reminds me. Once upon a time, Avalanche had plans to introduce on-chain governance. In an interview last January, however, Emin said that this plan has been scrapped because it could invite regulatory scrutiny. Note that AVAX is one of the few large-cap cryptos that hasn't yet been targeted by the SEC. Kevin also made some shocking comments in an interview last December. When asked about how all of Avalanche's innovations will increase the value of AVAX, he didn't really have an answer. He said that he personally doesn't care, and even argued that value accrual would hurt Avalanche's future adoption. And this brings me to the challenges we foresee for Avalanche. The first challenge is the elephant in the room, and that's the organic demand for AVAX. To be clear, Avalanche's adoption has been impressive. The problem is that almost all of this adoption has been happening on its subnets. To refresh your memory, AVAX isn't required to pay for transaction fees on subnets, and subnets don't need to spin up more than a few validators in order to function. In theory, the AVAX demand could come from subnet adoption, but in practice this is going to take a long time and will be offset by new AVAX supply. Make no mistake, this doesn't mean that AVAX isn't going to rally. In case our analysis of its price didn't make it clear enough, we believe that AVAX still has lots of potential. In other words, speculation alone will likely be enough to pump its price. We just think it would pump more with organic demand. This ties into Avalanche's second challenge, and that's regulation. The fact that Avalanche lost as much as $200 million in the Terra collapse, and the apparent fact that hundreds of millions of dollars of illicit crypto was bridged to its blockchain has likely invited a lot of regulatory scrutiny in recent months. This would explain why there have been multiple changes to the way that Avalanche communicates with its community. These changes include replacing Emin's weekly updates with community calls, migrating the Avalanche blog, and other measures which were likely taken to try and avoid Gary Gensler's eternal unblinking gaze. If you watched our video about the SEC's lawsuit against Binance, you'll know which criteria the regulator is using to classify crypto projects as securities. The fact that AVAX hasn't yet been named as a security is a bit surprising, and it could very well be a consequence of Avalanche's strong institutional backing. All we're wondering, though, is what regulatory can of worms Avalanche's subnets could open up. For example, imagine a scenario where someone launches a subnet and does illicit activity with it. What if it was a subnet that Ava Labs helped them set up? With so many subnets launching, it's possible they could run into such an issue. And this relates to Avalanche's third challenge, and that's transparency. In case you forgot, there's a foundation based in Singapore which coordinates Avalanche's development. This foundation is now planning to invest millions of dollars into meme coins and even announced that it would be buying $50 million of tokenized assets on Avalanche last July. And yet, there is still no information about the Avalanche Foundation itself. No website, no board of directors, no financial statements. The craziest part is that the foundation only recently revealed its mission statement. This suggests that it's going to become more involved in the Avalanche ecosystem. And never mind the fact that the Avalanche Foundation literally lost $200 million because of Terra. As AVAX holders, we would like to know more about the foundation and its operations, and we reckon that many other AVAX holders probably feel the same way. After all, transparency in crypto is key. We all know to verify and not to trust. But who knows, maybe this transparency would result in more regulatory scrutiny. Anyway, challenges aside, Avalanche appears to be perfectly positioned for the next crypto bull market. Its dual narrative of tokenized real-world assets and GameFi will likely propel AVAX to new all-time highs, regardless of the fundamentals. Let's just hope, though, that all the innovation doesn't result in any more outages. After all, Solana seems to have that niche more than covered. Okay, that's all for today's video, folks, so if you found it informative, smash that like button to let us know. If you want to stay informed, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell. If you know anyone who needs to be informed about Avalanche, then take a second to share this video with them. And with that, my friends, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Guy, signing off.